Thanks for joining into the channel. Today we'd like to feature an update to our original leather steering wheel insert. This is one that was presented over 10 years ago at a seminar. It's never been featured on this channel. So if you have that DVD, feel free to throw it away, please. And you'll find this update more informative, I certainly hope. So for those of you that are not familiar with what we're talking about, we're not making a complete steering wheel wrap. And this particular approach presupposes that the technician does not have a sewing machine. He's working strictly in the field, and therefore he will use only hand tools. Now, one of the improvements that we've made, hopefully, is that we've simplified the sizing of the insert. Only one measurement is critical, and that measurement is the circumference of the grip. There is leeway on the other measurements, so we're not going to be overly concerned with that. But I've heard you when you said we want to simplify the math, and we indeed have simplified the math on this, so I've been listening. So the other thing that we've improved upon is to get that insert to fit better on the wheel, because if we use adhesives, it can be difficult to reposition once we've stuck the adhesive there. So we've done a little something different to make it easier to line everything up. The third thing is that we have better control over the hand stitching. We take a little bit of a different approach to our hand stitching, which I think you'll find makes a much neater job. So the benefits of that are you can perform the same day service then for your customer. We don't have to order a steering wheel cover and wait for that to come in. We don't need to stock anything for various models. We have just leather, stock leather, that we can use and perform the service on the very same day. That's very important. And so I hope you'll find all of these adjustments to be more mobile tech friendly. The idea is that we would like to take this repair that many of you have been a bit apprehensive about doing. I'd like to take that and make it into a repair that you really look forward to doing the next time. So, are you ready? Let's jump on in. Happened to be a chilly, rainy day, but we found ourselves a place to work under cover. Not the best of lighting, though. So we're going to take a measurement of our outside radius. And so we measure from 2 to 42. So 40 centimeters on our outside radius. Now we'll turn the wheel over and measure the inside radius. This way gravity works in your favor. Of course, I'm using the first 2 centimeters just to hold the tape in place. So from 2 to 36.5 gives us 34.5 centimeters inside radius. And now for the circumference of the grip, pick any 2 numbers and subtract. 10 centimeters it is. So now we can check to make sure we have a big enough piece in our inventory. So while we trim the old piece off, we want to take good care with this single edge blade to cut through the blind stitching. These 2 pieces originally were stitched together. So cut just through the blind stitching. Just be very careful how you lay that blade in there so that we don't cut the piece that we want left over. And I don't know why I didn't show it in the video upcoming, but I took a measurement of the rubber core, the same way as we did the grip circumference on the leather, and it came out to 1 centimeter shorter. So we were 10 centimeters around the leather, but around the rubber core, it is 9 centimeters. That is the exact width that we want to cut. So we found a good spot to cut this out of our leather inventory. On the left, you'll see the 9 centimeters wide. When we cut that 9 centimeters, we can cut actually on the inside of the line because the leather will stretch. Once we start sewing, we are going to stretch that leather a bit and get a really snug, tight fit. Now let's look at the outside radius of 40 centimeters. We are going to fold under what we would have as a seam allowance of 1 centimeter on either end. That means a total of 2 centimeters for seam allowance. And because we are not cutting it exactly to length at this time, we're cutting it long. So let's just add 2 centimeters extra, just to give us room to play. In other words, we're taking our 40 centimeters outside radius and just adding a total of 4 centimeters just so that we have extra. And we're doing exactly the same with the inside radius. We're taking our 34.5 centimeters, adding 1 centimeter to each end for a total of 2 centimeters seam allowance, plus again, that 2 centimeters extra just because we're cutting it long. And that inside radius will need to be centered within the outside radius. You can fold it over to find the center, or you can just take 44 centimeters divided by 2, which gives you 22 centimeters, and you can mark the center. And I have used a roll of masking tape to make an arc on the end of it, so I have extra, but I don't have too much extra out there flopping around. Next, we need to make our leather thinner where it's going to be folded under itself, bearing in mind that the 1 centimeter from the end is our extra that we're going to cut away anyway. So the 2nd and the 3rd centimeter in from the end, roughly figuring, just estimate that, that's what you're going to need to skive thinner. Now let's punch our holes, starting with our center line that we marked. This center hole will be hole number 1. There will be one on the other side because we folded the leather over when we punched the holes. So let's call these holes number 1. One on the center on this side and one on the center on the other side. Now I can put some contact cement on our leather insert as well as on the rubber core. Remember, the original wrap was stretched around the wheel so it held itself on. Here we don't have that luxury. We have to glue it. Bear in mind, we don't want any glue down there where we're going to be sewing. Now when this is tacked up, it's going to have a strong grip, so I am spraying 1 light application of spray glue right before putting the leather on. That way it's still slippery, allowing me time to reposition this piece before pressing it firmly and permanently. You can eyeball the length or you can feel the length. Just hang over a little bit on either end is good. And then by turning the wheel over, I can make sure that the center seam meets right up in the center of that grip. I have time to reposition this around, slide it around. I know you can't see very well what I'm doing, but just making sure everything meets together really nicely, and you've got time to do that. Once you've got it where you want it, then you can work it down around The sides where you have, again, that contact cement will give you the nice permanent attachment there. A little trick with 2 glues. Start your stitch in the middle on holes number 1. Go front to back through holes number 1. And then from the back, come to the front again and go back through again, straight across. Then you can tighten that up and make sure you have equal lengths for both needles. Snug that up. Now we're going to go to holes number 2. I have a hold of the front needle, so I'm going to go in the back, out the front on holes number 2. Now the other needle is going to come across, and that's going to go front to back through holes number 2, straight across. We'll get you a better look when we do the other half, but as you can see, I'm starting in the middle and I'm doing the first half to my left, and I'm going to stop just short of the end, and you can see where we have excess hanging over on the end. So I'll just speed through this, and then we'll get to where you can get a better camera angle here on the second half. We're going to start in the middle again and go to the right. So here I have already started. We've gone through holes number 1, front to back, come around, go front to back again, tighten up again, and now we're going to go through holes number 2 to the right. Straight across from the back to the front. The other needle is going to come across and go front to back in holes number 2. This gives you a chance to pull this leather nice and snug with each stitch. And because you pull it snug with each stitch and you start it in the center, the lay of the leather is going to be perfectly contoured to this steering wheel grip. Pull it tight each time. Then we're going to go back to front, front to back, straight across. Next hole, front to back to front. Tighten it up. Back to front to back. Tighten it up. And of course, we're going to stop short of the end. We can take our needles off, just let our threads hang there until we take care of the ends. Now here's the beauty about not measuring it exactly the right length and worrying about that. We can feel the edge of the existing leather, and we can mark with our leather pen right in that edge. So this is what's going to give us our exact measurement. I didn't think about it ahead of time, but after I started doing this method, I was thinking, when you buy a new suit, the pants are always cut long. So when you get them fitted, the tailor will fold up the hem and he'll make a chalk mark right there where your pants touch the top of your shoes. So he doesn't have to measure an exact length either. He's going to do just what we're doing here. Make a chalk mark and then do your tailoring. So what I'm doing here is just cutting off of the excess. I'm leaving about 1 centimeter to fold under. That's it. So that's all the excess I had right there. But I don't think you really want to have much more excess than that hanging around while you're working. Again, contact cement here because this is going to fold under, and the two surfaces of the leather that you skived will be glued right together. And you still have your mark there to line up. And you can just fold it as you need to get that perfect fit. I've also found that taking a small hammer and tapping this joint helps it to snug up too. No math required fitting the ends. So our goal here is to make this look as though it were blind stitched. I'm going to call it the blind unstitch. So now we can put our needles back on the thread and return like we were doing a minute ago. And the other nice feature about this particular way of stitching is that when you come to the last hole, you're already going straight across from front to back and back to front. So this is the way we always wanted to do on the ends, to square off the ends. Well, we're automatically going to be squaring off the ends by just continuing our normal stitch. So when I finish my last stitch, I'm just planning on doing a square knot right there on top. And I can pull that knot under by burying the tails of that knot. So you can see that before doing my final tightening on this stitch, I'm making sure that those ends come right together. What a nice snug fit that is. And I know the lighting is not the best. I never work under cover because there is no light, and that really hurts the video here. But that's part of the reality of this channel. We have to take it as we get it in the field. At least we're not getting rained on. How about as an insurance policy, we run some glue right down here in our unstitch. This is not a really thin glue. It's not a gel either. Kind of medium, so it flows with some control, and it has some body to it. So I have the opportunity to put that glue in there, and because it doesn't kick immediately, I can also snug things up if I feel like I need to, and then use the accelerator. It's a pretty good fit already, but just if you want to make sure everything's laid down really nicely, you can do it. So anyway, the black leather that I have in stock is just the wrong grain for this. You see there's almost no grain to this steering wheel. That's the way the Fords are. And so I couldn't get away with using any kind of grained leather here. And we have mentioned the priorities on this channel before. When you don't have the right kind of material, go for grain first, color second. So getting the right grain is important to us. We can always color it. In fact, we would anticipate coloring it for whatever automobile we happen to be working in. But always pick closest grain first, closest color second, and then we can finish with our color matching. A wipe in color to get me started while I'm getting the gun ready, right? It can be drying, and then my first spray coat goes on. The one thing I'm doing here is just a very light coat. This is the final coat. Using the hair dryer with a light coat just to make sure everything looks nice and even. Also, there's a slip additive in this particular coat, and crosslinker, of course. And as careful as we were with our drop cloth, there still could be some overspray, so we're just tidying everything up before we call it good. Well, there you have it. That's not the end of the story, however, because as it turned out, I went back to the dealership a couple of days after having done this repair, and I noticed the Expedition wasn't where I had parked it. And when I went into the dealership, the manager came up to me and gave me a fist bump, and he said, "Oh my God, the Expedition." Well, here's the story behind that. I had left the dealership on the day of the repair at about 2:30, and at 5 o'clock a customer came in who had been shopping Expeditions all day. So when the customer looked at the vehicle, that was the same time that the first time that the manager had seen that vehicle repaired. And what we had done, not only the steering wheel, but a spot on the metallic trim on the dash, and the seats had to be redyed. So when the manager opened the door, he was as flabbergasted as the customer was. So the customer paid him with a check right then and there and was gone by 6 o'clock. So that story has a happy ending. We can see In this case, the real value of being able to do the repair on the same day with this procedure. I hope you'll have similar success and similar joy in your business as well. Thank you for watching.